And once it's gone, and in fact, the way Dr. Paul does is he identifies the paragraph and says, instead, just put a period there. And let's not have any words there. And so therefore the paragraph goes away if this becomes law.
Do you have the actual words there? Can you read to us?
I do. I have the actual wording of the paragraph.
Okay, that sounds interesting. I am interested to know about that.
Actually, the law is, well, it's called a bill when it's in Congress is a bill, and once the president signs it, it becomes part of the United States Code or the U.S. Code. So the U.S. Code, Title 31, Section 714, subsection B, that is the place where this paragraph is. And the paragraph says as follows. It says, under regulations of the Comptroller General, the Comptroller shall audit an agency, but may carry out on-site examination only if the Fed has consented to it. Nobody can audit the Fed unless the Fed consents to it. Audits may not include foreign banks, foreign governments, foreign countries, monetary policy. It goes on and gives a long list of detail of exceptions and saying that you cannot, the Federal Reserve is utterly and totally immune from being looked at. That's what this paragraph actually says. And for that citation, if somebody wants to look it up, it's U.S. Code, Title 31, Section 714, subsection B. That's the one that Ron Paul wants to clip out. And once it's gone, then, of course, he wants to call for an audit. Congress calling for an audit, and that would be the other, that's page 2 in his thing, is to call for an audit.
Yeah, now I've heard Mr. Bernanke himself say that the Federal Reserve is audited. I heard these words come out of his mouth. I saw him myself say it. But it looks like that the audits of the Federal Reserve don't include a lot of the things that we really would like to know about.
Well, in fact, they don't include anything with respect to monetary policy or with respect to this money or with respect to where it went, with respect to the trillions of dollars we're talking about, with respect to their any transactions having to do with the Federal Open Market Committee. So yes, it eliminates. And when you hear them say that, it is an internal audit that is conducted internally by the Federal Reserve and controlled by the Federal Reserve, and it's for the purposes of the Federal Reserve as an internal audit. This is not an external audit coming from Congress or coming from anybody else. Nobody is permitted to conduct such an audit. Congress is not allowed to call for an audit.
No.
They're not allowed to call an audit. They can call for one, they can beg for one, but they have no authority to.
Doesn't the Constitution says that the Congress has the authority to regulate the value of money?
They have the only authority.
So how is it that the Congress cannot audit the Federal Reserve whenever the Congress, so I mean, it seems that this piece of the U.S. Code is simply unconstitutional.
Yes, it is. It is unconstitutional. What it does, Congress has, through this law, when this was written, has through this law abdicated its total responsibility for keeping track of anything with respect to the money of the Fed.
Now, I understand how that whenever bills come up before Congress, that they come from these committees and such, and they come up for a vote, and a lot of times people are voting on them and they've never even read what it said.
That's unfortunately true.
Yeah. How often is that true?
An overwhelming amount of the time, probably 9 out of 10 times.
So they're actually voting on it, and they never saw the law at all. So they had no idea what they were voting on.
That's correct. Many of the laws, especially those having to do with money, are sometimes as much as 1,000 pages long. Which, by the way, interestingly enough, this is just 2 pages, and it just simply goes in and clips out the one paragraph that stands in the way, and then Congress is allowed to ask, and can, once the Congress is able to ask the question, we want it audited, then the Government Accounting Office, the GAO, would then go in and conduct an audit of the Fed. That would be an outside audit. That's the kind of thing you cannot have today. The Federal Reserve can audit itself, but you cannot have an outside audit of the Federal Reserve today because of this code.
Well, certainly they're not going to be very likely to audit themselves if they've got $9 trillion in off-the-book transactions. In other words, a lot of dirty laundry. They're not going to really voluntarily want to be audited, are they?
Well, we know that they have never wanted to be voluntarily audited.
Well, I guess suppose that maybe nobody really wants to be voluntarily audited, but if this is if these people are working for us, they should be audited. Now, are they working for us?
The Federal Reserve is a private central bank, a collection of Federal Reserve banks, 10 Federal Reserve banks, and the Federal Reserve is immune to audit, and it will remain immune until that paragraph is taken out.
So this is not a part of the Treasury. The Federal Reserve Bank is not a part of the Treasury. You're trying to tell me that it's not something like a capacitor hooked in on the line with the Treasury that can it says it's a reserve bank. So I had the idea that somehow if we were running out of money, all they have to do is just kind of squeeze the bellows a little bit and push a little bit of the money that they've got stored up in there, push it back into the economy. Is that how it works?
Well, actually, the Federal Reserve is very intimately associated with the Treasury, even though it is a private central bank and it is separate. For instance, the President of the United States has a special council put together, and the people seated on that council are the Secretary of the Treasury and the Chairman of the Federal Reserve. So they sit next to each other and work on the economic moves and coordinate the moves between the Federal Reserve and the Treasury. It's very common for them to work extremely close together. So we shouldn't think of them as they are separate by the way they were drawn up and designed and so forth, but they are very intimate in the way that they work together.
Now, this H.R. 1207, how is this bill is only 2 pages long, so I suppose that hardly anybody is going to be able to say that they didn't have time to read it. Is that?
Yes, it takes 30 seconds to read the bill.
Okay, and how's it doing? I mean, is there any chance that this is going to be passed, or how is this bill doing in Congress right now?
Well, it does have some momentum, and it's bipartisan. It has Democrats. It has a bill. When you first go into sponsor a bill, you're a congressman and you walk in and you want to sponsor a bill, and they have to give it a number, and then it has to be referred to a committee. And you become the author of the bill or the sponsor of the bill. Dr. Paul is the author of H.R. 1207. And then you have others that can decide to put their name on there and say, I want to be part of this bill. And so far, we have 179 co-sponsors, both Democrat and Republican, who have signed on to this bill and put their names down there as being actual co-sponsors with Dr. Paul of H.R. 1207. That's almost half of Congress.
Now,